I'm going to guess today that if certain people were to walk into this building, their presence would cause a stir and a reaction. For instance, if Bill Gates walked in here today, some of us would recognize him. Some of us wouldn't. There's some old guy. But some of us would recognize him. And people would, perhaps sit up and say, oh man, that's Bill Gates. He's like one of the richest guys in the world. What on earth is he doing on Mullen? What is he doing here at our church? I mean, people would start talking. Some people might want to meet him. Some would be so distracted by his presence that they really couldn't focus on anything else. They'd just keep looking. Oh, is he still here? What's he doing? Oh, he's blowing his nose. What's he doing now? We would just be enamored by this guy, right? Because he's achieved great success financially. He has fame because of what he's accomplished. So we would give him a certain level of respect and acknowledgement. If a guy like Tom Brady walked in here today, many of us would really sit up, right? Some of you are going, well, who's Tom Brady? Some of us would stare. Some of us would begin to point. Look, it's Tom. Because of his presence in the room. Cell phones would start coming out. We would be snapping pictures. We would want to maybe get close to him, maybe shake his hand, right? Because Tom Brady has achieved great success on the football field. He's famous for what he's done. And so we would respect and acknowledge him because of who he is and what he's accomplished. If Jennifer Lawrence made an appearance in the building today, and again, some might go, well, who is that? Well, her presence would make a stir among some of us. There would be whispers, again, cell phones, requests for autographs. We would be going to social media and posting. You'll never guess who's in our church. Why? Because she's achieved great success as an actor. She's accomplished much on the big screen. And so many of us would give her a higher level of respect and acknowledgement because of who she is and what she's done. Certain people, because of what they've achieved or accomplished, we deem them worthy for extra attention. Certain folks are given extra value and worth because of who they are and what they have accomplished. And when we exalt a person like that, when we acknowledge a person in a special way, giving them that value, what we're doing is we're giving them glory. And we don't call it that. We don't say, oh, Jennifer Lawrence was in our church today. We glorified her. We don't say that. We'll say stuff like, oh man, I'm a huge fan, right? Or we might say something like, oh, I just idolize that person. Well, it's just kind of a modern way of saying that we're giving that person glory. We're not using that word, but that's really what's going on. We're glorifying those individuals. And as Clint pointed out last week, not only is the Bible filled with references on God's glory, it is the central theme of the Bible. It is it. It's the bullseye in Scripture. God has glory, and we've been instructed to give God glory. Psalm 29:3 says, He's called the God of glory. Psalm 8:1, His glory is higher than the heavens. Psalm 72:19 says, His name is glorious. Psalm 24:8 says that He's called the King of glory. And that's just a little sampling. But what does that mean? I mean, it's the central part of Scripture. We were created for this. You heard last week as Clinton opened up what has become this little mini-series, the idea that God's intention even in the cross was to glorify himself. And I know some of you struggled with that, and hopefully when we finish today, some more of those loose ends will come together. But what does that mean? I mean, I see stuff like that, and that's where my mind goes. It's like, wow, wow, wow. But yeah, what is, I want to know what it means. I don't want to just have these Christianized words and ideas and know that they're meaty and meaningful, but not know what they mean. Just kind of go along with it. I want to know what is going on when we talk about glorifying God. Does it mean the same thing that it means when we glorify people, like we just talked about? Is it the same thing, just different because it's God? And that's what I want us to look at this morning in our time together. What exactly do we mean when we talk about that God has glory and that we are to glorify him? And so, if you have your notes this morning, I gave you a little bit more than normal. I tried not to give you too many blanks to fill in, but I think this is all important. And I want us to understand a little bit this idea of glory. And the Hebrew word, and I don't throw too many Hebrew and Greek words out at you, but this is, I think, really helpful and important. But the Hebrew word is on your notes there. It is the word kavod in the Hebrew. And it's the word that's translated glory or glorious in the Old Testament. Guys, we got that slide up there? And it simply means, in its simplest term, heaviness or weight. Heaviness or weight. Let me give you a couple of examples, and I've got the scripture up there so that you can see it. The background of this particular passage is that Israel was in a war with a group of people called the Philistines. And in the course of the battle, the Philistines took possession of the Ark of the Covenant. It was a very important religious article for Israel. And Eli was the priest, and when Eli was told that the ark was taken, look what it says. Eli fell backward from his seat beside the gate. He broke his neck and died because he was old and overweight. He had been Israel's judge for 40 years. In describing Eli in this passage, it says that he was old and had kavod. He was fat. That's why, you think you're sitting in a chair and you fall down. What's the big deal? Why do you die? Well, he was an old guy, so he had brittle bones, and he was overweight, so that made it even worse, and so he broke his neck. But the word used for him being overweight there is the same word that's translated most of the time as glory. It just means he had a lot of weight. He was heavy. So that's the use of it in a literal sense. But it's also used in descriptive or a metaphorical sense. Here's a couple of verses on that. You remember the story of Joseph in Genesis, and Joseph was sold into slavery. He eventually becomes second in charge of all of Egypt, and his brothers who sold him into slavery, they show up. And it goes through this whole deal where he doesn't reveal himself to his brothers initially and sends them away, and then they come back, and it's a great story. But when we get to chapter 45, Joseph has revealed himself to his brothers, and now he tells his brothers to go back and get his father. And this is what it says. Guys, could you put that verse up there? Genesis 45:13. Joseph says, "Go tell my father of my honored position here in Egypt. Describe for him everything you have seen, and then bring my father here quickly." The word there, honored position, is the word kavod. He's literally saying, go tell my father of my heavy position. Tell him about this position I have that's now a heavy position. I have a lot of kavod, is what he's saying. I am a heavy guy, not physically, but because of the responsibilities and because of the things that I get to oversee. I am a man of kavod. Then we go to Exodus 28:2. God is giving the instructions to build the tabernacle and all the things that go with the tabernacle, and that includes the priestly garments. And when he gives the instructions to Moses about the priestly garments, he says, I want them to be made glorious and beautiful. And the word there is kavod. I want them to be heavy. I want them to be glorious and beautiful. What's he mean? I want them to be such that when people see them, they go, whoa! We might call it the awe factor. I want these robes, these priestly garments, to catch people's eye, is what he's saying. And so the word kavod is used there. And then just one more, just to give you a flavor of this, the way this is used here descriptively. In the book of Esther, chapter 1, we see the Persian king Xerxes throws a party for 180 days. Now, can you imagine that? That's like 6 months. A 6-month party. I mean, just crazy. But part of the reason he throws this party, it says in verse 4, that he wants to display or make a tremendous display of the opulent wealth of his empire and the pomp and splendor of his majesty. The word that's translated opulent there is the word kavod. The king wanted to show off his heaviness. So in this passage, it has to do with his wealth, his greatness, because he was a man of wealth, that he had a lot of stuff. And so as he's showing his party, different times of the day, people are coming through with his riches and his jewels and his animals and all his stuff. And so all of his partiers can sit back and go, whoa, wow, whoa. That's the idea here. That's how this word kavod is used. So, here's just kind of a summary of all that. Kavod, or the glory of a person or a thing, is the measure of that thing or person's importance, value, or position. It's their weight, so to speak. Now we use the word heavy in a similar way today. You know, somebody says something shocking, and we might say, wow, that's heavy. Somebody might say something, really like mind-blowing, some philosophical something, and you go, well, that's a heavy thought. Well, that's the same idea. We just kind of use the words in a different way. So that's when it's dealing with a person or a thing. It's just talking about their value, their importance, their position. Now, let's talk about how it's used with relation to God. The use of glory in the Bible is used with people and it's used with things, but it's primarily used in reference to God. Here's a couple of verses. They're not on the screen, but you have them in your notes, at least the references. Exodus 24:16, it says, "And the glory of the Lord, the kavod of the Lord, settled down on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days." So in this passage, the glory of the Lord is described like a cloud that comes over the mountain. His presence, his heaviness shows up like this cloud. But listen to this. In the very next verse, it's described in a different way. In verse 17, it says, "To the Israelites at the foot of the mountain, the glory, the kavod of the Lord, appeared at the summit like a consuming fire." So God's glory, his heaviness, his kavod, shows up as a cloud, and it shows up like a fire. So you go, well, which is it? Well, hold on. In Numbers 14:22, it says, "Not one of these people will ever enter the land. They have all seen my glorious presence and the miraculous signs I perform both in Egypt and in the wilderness. But again and again, they have tested me by refusing to listen to my voice." Now, what that passage is talking about, God is telling Moses, look, the Israelites have continually disobeyed, sinned against me, and so this group, this generation will not go into the land. But notice what he says. They have seen my kavod, my glorious presence. How? Through miraculous signs. So the miraculous signs that God did were his kavod, his heaviness. So we got a cloud, we got fire, we got miraculous signs. Psalm 19:1. The heavens proclaim the glory of God, the kavod of God, and the skies display his craftsmanship. What does that mean? That means when we go out on a very clear night on Molokai and we see the myriads of stars up there, they're screaming to us, this God is heavy. This God has weight. This God, he's something else. Cloud, fire, miracles, creation. So what is God's glory? We don't have time to look at every passage. This is just a sampling to kind of give you an idea. The point is this: to give us a definitive idea of what God's glory is, it's impossible. It's like trying to describe beauty. How would you describe beauty? Well, all of us would use different things to try to, beauty is, but it wouldn't be enough, right? So to describe glory, God's glory, we can do our best, but it's not quite enough because it encompasses so much. And I think you'll understand this better in just a minute. But here's a definition. If you have your notes, I'll give you something to work with. This isn't great, but I think it works. God's glory is the visible display of his reality and his character. In other words, God's glory is to show us, first of all, he's there. He's real. And then his glory is supposed to reveal to us something about who he is. It refers to his awesomeness as a being. So when we give God glory, and this is going to be real important, we're going to talk about this a little bit more in a minute, we're not really giving it to him as if he didn't have it. We can't give him literally glory. What it means to give God glory is to acknowledge his reality and to honor his character. So when we give God glory, we're going, wow, God, you are there, and you are all this. That's what it means to give God glory. So when we go out at night and we look at those stars and they're screaming to us, what are they saying? They're saying, I am real, and I am powerful, and I am vast. And we should be going, glory, glory. That's what that means. Let me give you some characteristics of God's glory. I'm going to use a big word here, but I'm going to explain it to you, so don't get scared, all right? I think it's important that we come at this from this angle. But God's glory, first of all, is intrinsic. What does that mean? It means it's a part of his nature. When something is intrinsic, it means you can't separate it from what that thing is. You can't separate God and his glory. A person who accomplishes something, they get it from outside of themselves. They get it as a result of something outside of them. For instance, just go back to our people that walk into the room. Tom Brady. Tom Brady's this great quarterback. He's won, I think it's 6 Super Bowls. Crazy. And so people, wow, Tom Brady's the most amazing quarterback that's ever lived. And he's done all this. He's broken all these records. He's done all these great things. Well, we give him glory, but that glory has come as a result of a process. He didn't come out of the womb throwing 40-yard touchdown passes. You know, Dad, go long. No, it started off as he got old enough, somebody put a football in his hand. And then maybe, I don't know his story, so this is kind of all made up, but you'll get the idea. Maybe he was out in the yard and he and his dad threw a football around. And then from there, they got him into Pop Warner football. He started playing Little League football, and he started getting better and better. And then by the time he got into high school, he went out for the high school team, and he became a football player on the high school team. And then from there, he went to college, and he played on the college team, eventually getting drafted and coming to the NFL. And what happened all along that way? He had trainers, he had coaches, he had people that poured into him to get him to the point where he is today, where people glorify him, but that glory was the result of what happened to him and what was done for him. It wasn't intrinsic in him. He didn't come out a star quarterback. Anytime that you and I excel at something, it's because something outside of us is helping us to be that individual, to accomplish those things. That's not the way it is with God. God's glory is who He is. It doesn't come from outside. It's kind of like wet and water, saltiness and salt, heat and fire. You can't have water without wet. I'd like some of that water, but leave the wet out, please. It doesn't work. You can't have salt without saltiness. Give me some salt, but I really would cut the saltiness. Would you do? It doesn't work. You can't have fire without heat. Hey, we got a fire going here, but could you bring a match? It's not quite hot enough. It doesn't work. You can't have God without glory. It's intrinsic as who God is. God has always been glorious, and there's no room for improvement. Again, anything that you and I are good at, we accomplish, we get good at it because something outside of us helps us to get there. God needs nothing to be glorious. He is glorious on His own. It's intrinsic in Him. Here's number 2. God's glory is unlimited. What does that mean? Well, for a person to have glory, it's usually only in one or two areas. You know, if you're a glorious plumber, you may be a lousy cook, right? If you're a glorious mechanic, well, you may be a terrible seamstress. God's glory is unlimited. He's glorious in every way. In other words, is God glorious in His power? Well, yeah. Well, how about in His omniscience, His all-knowing? Yeah, He's glorious in that too. Well, maybe He needs a little bit more glory over here in His kindness and goodness. No, He's glorious. He's glorious as He can get in all of those things. His glory is unlimited. It's not like it is for us. It's unlimited. Here's number 3. God's glory is eternal. Human glory is temporal and fading. Let's go back to our people that walked into the room. Brady won't always be able to throw 40-yard passes. He's going to get old someday, and he'll be lucky if he can get it 10 yards, right? And people will talk about the Brady he was, not the Brady he is. Jennifer Lawrence, she won't always be young and beautiful. One day she'll start getting parts to play somebody's mom. And then she'll get parts to start playing somebody's grandma. Right? And people will talk about, oh, she used to be so beautiful. What happened? Right? The glory is temporal and fading. And you go, but wait. How about Bill Gates? He'll be rich all through his life. Yes, but he'll die. The ultimate proof that glory is fading and temporal, right? Not so with God. Psalm 41:13 says, praise the Lord, the God of Israel, who lives from everlasting to everlasting. In other words, there was never a point that God obtained glory because He's always been glorious and He's always been there. And He will always be there. And you say, I can't quite figure that out. Join the club. When you start talking eternity, it's mind-blowing. But the reality is that God's glory is eternal. It's not going anywhere. And it doesn't get greater. It's already great. Here's number 4. And this is perhaps a little shocking, but I'm going to try to explain it to you. God's glory is deadly. God's glory is deadly. We see this idea clearly in the passage that was read this morning out of Exodus 33. Moses is with God on the Mount Sinai. And Moses said, God, show me your glory. And in so many words, God says, Moses, I can't do that. If I show you my glory, you're going to die. So Moses, I'm going to set you here in the cleft of this rock, and I'm going to put my hand. And by the way, this is all what's called anthropomorphical speech, which means it's using images of people to describe God. God doesn't have hands and a face and all. It's to help us try to conceptualize what's going on here. But God says to Moses, I'm gonna hide you in this rock, and I'm gonna pass by you. But you can't see me, because if you see me, it will kill you, Moses. Now, in one way, when we look at that, we can actually see the love and the mercy and the grace of God. Because he could have said, okay, Moses, here we go. Boom. And just showed him, all of him. But he goes, no, Moses. Moses, I know you're not going to get this because you're a man and I'm God. You're created and I'm creator. But Moses, you got to understand, if you ever saw all of my glory, all of my awesomeness, all of who I am, you would die, Moses. Now, again, what is going on there? Well, in Hebrews, we're told that you don't see God unless you're holy. And in this life, none of us are that, totally, because we live in these decaying bodies. And so we don't know all of what that is, but it's very interesting, too, that when God says to Moses, I'm going to pass by you, he says, Moses, I'm going to allow my goodness to pass by you. And the implication is, Moses, I am so good. I'm gooder than anything you know, Moses. And as my goodness passes you, if you were to look at me, my goodness would disintegrate you. It'd kill you. Something that good. Okay. I get it, but I don't get it. Good. That's exactly where you're supposed to be. And you say, so what's the big deal? Why is this important? Why are we spending time on this? Why did Clinton spend time on this last week and talk? Why is this important, Rand? Is this really important to my everyday life? How do I use this? So glad you ask. Because here we go. As we finish out, I'm going to give you 3 points here. And here's the first one. We need to hunger for more of God's glory. Listen, if you didn't hear anything else today, if you turned me off a long time ago because I didn't come here for a class, then I want you to hear this, because this is just so rich, so good. Moses says, God, show me your glory. God, show me your glory. I mean, Moses could have asked for anything. He just asked God, will you reassure me that your presence is going to go with us? Because if your presence doesn't go with us, I don't want to go into the promised land. And God reassures him. He says, Moses, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to go with you. And then Moses, it's almost like he goes, wow, God answered that request. I'm going to try this one. God, show me your glory. Now I'm looking at that and I'm thinking about it and I'm going, wait a minute. We already saw in the passages that we looked at that God's glory showed up in a cloud, it showed up in fire, it showed up in miracles. And I'm going, wait a minute, Moses. You've already seen God's glory. God's glory showed up in that bush that was burning and not consumed. That was God. He spoke to you out of that bush, Moses. You saw God's glory in that bush. And then Moses, you saw God's glory when you took your shepherd's staff and you threw it down and he turned it into a snake. That was God doing it. You saw his glory there. And wait a minute, Moses, how about the 10 plagues? All those plagues, that was God. Even God said, they'll know after this that I'm the Lord. That was God through miracles, showing his glory, his awesomeness, saying, I am real, and here is my character. Moses, how can you ask God to show his glory? Wait a minute, Moses, you saw God part the Red Sea. I mean, if that's not God's glory, then what on earth could possibly be better? Moses, how on earth do you have the nerve after seeing the bush and the snake and the plagues and the Red Sea? How could you possibly ask God to show his glory when he's already showed it? And you know what's going on here? Moses is saying, God, man, I've seen your glory. It's almost like steps if you look at it, folks. Hey, the bush, that was wow, that was turning a rod into a snake. Whoa, 10 plagues. The Red Sea, it's like every one is greater and better. And Moses is like, God, you are so amazing. I just want to see more of you. God, I really want to see more of you. I know, God, that there's more of you to see, and I got to see more of you, God. That's what's going on here. And folks, we've got to get to a place in our lives where we say, God, help me to hunger for more of you. God, I want more of you. I've seen you do this, and I see you here, and I know you've been awesome here, but God, man, I want to see more of you. Several years ago, when Clinton was at the Air Force Academy, Louise and I went to visit him, and in the process, he said, hey, I found this restaurant, and I think you guys are really going to like this. And it was called the Texas Roadhouse. And so I said, yeah, shoot, let's try it. So we went out and went to this place, a big restaurant. And with a name like Texas Roadhouse, you know it's not vegan. In fact, somebody just told me recently if God meant us to just eat vegetables, he wouldn't have made cows out of steak. So, I mean, you got to think about that one for a minute. So anyway, so we go to this restaurant, and we order, and they bring us salad, and they bring us these rolls, this huge salad, and these rolls that look like mini loaves of bread. And Clint goes, oh man, you're going to really like those rolls. They are amazing. Well, I live with the bread queen, so, they've got to be pretty good in order to be amazing. But I got to tell you, they were amazing. They were really soft, and they were buttery, and they had a little bit of sweet. And so, man, I mauled. I was eating salad, and I don't know how many of those rolls I ate, but I was just mauling on that stuff. And then the server, a half hour later, brings these steaks that were laying over the side of the plate. And I was so full. I was like, I don't know if I can eat this. And I didn't. I ate 2 bites because I was so full on bread and salad. I was just loving the appetizer. But I didn't come for bread and salad. I came for the steak. I wanted the steak. And I had to eat it cold later. But God gives us these little appetizers of himself. We walk out at night and we see the sky, and it's supposed to be screaming to us, I'm real, and I'm vast, and I'm amazing. And we go to the beach, and we see a big wave, a 25, 30-foot wave, and it's God saying, I'm powerful, Rand. I'm real, and I'm powerful. And then we look at a little delicate flower that has such intricacy and pattern, and it's God saying, Rand, I'm real, and I'm an artist, and I'm creative, and I love you. And all that's great, but those are just appetizers. And some of us are content just to hang out with the appetizers, and God's going, no. The appetizer is to draw you in so that you'll go, God, I want more. I want more of you, God. I want to see your glory. God, I want to know you, God, in a way I've never known you before. I'm not content with just the appetizers. God, I got to have the main course. Folks, we got to come to a place in our life where we are hungry for God. Psalm 34:8 says, oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Moses, you've seen the bush, and you've seen the snake, and you've seen the plagues, and you've seen the Red Sea split. Moses, I can't let you see all of me, but I'm going to let my goodness pass by you. And once I pass, Moses, you can look out, but all I'm going to allow you to see is what's left behind. And folks, do you get the point? Whatever was left behind was greater than anything he had already seen. It was greater than the Red Sea splitting. The dust. You know, we used to say as kids when we'd race somebody and we'd beat them, oh man, I left you in my dust. Right? God was saying, Moses, I'm going to pass by and I'm going to leave you in my dust. But Moses, that dust is glorious, more so than even the Red Sea that you experienced. Number two, not only do we need to be hungering for God's glory, we need to be reflecting God's glory. Everything was created by God and for His glory. You say that, but that sounds so egotistical. It is, because we are egotistical. But when you're the best and there's nothing beyond you, then it's not egotistical. It's truth. God wants you to have Him because He's the best. You got to get this. This is so vital. God is not some giant cosmic egotist in the sky. He is the best. And He says, because I love you, I want you to have me. There's nothing better than me. He said, listen, I want you to reflect me. Romans 11:36. For everything comes from Him. Listen to this. Everything comes from Him. That means He's creator. And exists by His power. That means the only reason that you and I live is because God sustains us. See, we take God for granted because He's so consistent. If God just decided today, I'm going to cut the oxygen off for the earth just for 24 hours. We're gone. You realize it's God and the way that He set things up that sustains you and me. He not only created us, He keeps us going. Everything comes from Him and exists by His power and is intended for His glory. What does that mean? That means that you and I live to reflect this amazing God. That's what it means. Our purpose is to bring Him maximum glory. 1 Corinthians 10:31. Whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all, listen, for the glory of God. What is he saying there in that verse that we heard over and over again, and we know it by heart because it's so simple, but we don't really understand what's going on, because what Paul is saying is in the most mundane things in life, the most basic, boring things of life that we do all the time. We drink and we eat. That's how we stay alive. We pick up a glass of water and we drink it, and he says you should be glorifying God for it. And you go, what? It's just water. Why do I glorify God for it? Because the only reason you have water in your hand to drink is because it comes from Him. He brought the rain. He made the aquifer. He allowed the people who had the ability to engineer the pipes to put it into your sink, to put the faucet, to put it into your glass, to put it down your throat, to keep you alive. In everything that we do, the most mundane things are we're supposed to be reminded, I'm only here because of the great God. That's what it means. We sit down to eat and we go, oh man, that was such a great meal. No, we should be saying that's such a great God that He created this. We look at a sunset, we go, wow, that is so beautiful. Such an amazing sun. No, it's a great God who is creative and artistic and loving, that He would even give us this. He could have made the world gray. He could have made everything the same color. He could have made food taste all the same way. He could have made everything just bland. And man, think about it. Think about the love of God just in the variety of foods that He's created. I never thought about it before. Yes, I know. That's why we're doing this. Because we have a great God. We had all these guys standing up here this morning and just singing how great Thou art. And you go, oh man, it's amazing. No, He's amazing. How great You are, God, that You gave these guys the talent to put it all on the line and say, God, we want to worship You this morning. That's what we're supposed to be doing. Why am I coming to church? Well, I hope I get something out of it today. No! I'm coming because there's this great God that's put me together with brothers and sisters in Christ, and together we can glorify Him. We can tell Him how great He is. Man, I got to tell you this. So Moses gets this experience. I like to picture this stuff. I don't know if you do this. It's my mind. I'm sorry. I picture God saying, hey, okay, Moses, I want you to stand right over here. Moses like a kid, right? Moses, I want you to go over there in a corner. I want you to close your eyes. Now, Moses, don't you turn around, because you do, you're going to die. So you stand right there in a corner, and I'm going to let all my goodness, and Moses is going to be enough just for my goodness pass by. You're going to be amazed. You're going to be blown away, Moses. And then once I pass by, I'm going to let you peek, and then you're really going to see it, Moses. So this whole thing goes down, and Moses is blown away. It's better than the Red Sea. It's better than the bush. It's better than the plagues. Whatever took place there was amazing. You know how I know? Because in chapter 34, we don't have time to look at it, but you take a look at it. Moses makes his way down the mountain, and he's glowing. So much so that Aaron, his own brother, Aaron sees him, and the people that are with Aaron see him, and they're terrified. They're going, whoa, buddy, what happened to you? Hide it, man. What's happened? Moses was in the presence of God, and it changed him. He was reflecting God in such a way that it was, whoa, I don't know if I can handle that. Folks, that's a picture of what's supposed to happen when we spend time basking in the glory of God. People should ask, what's wrong with you? What's different about you? Instead, I'm afraid too many times people look at us as Christians and go, well, they're just like me. We're not supposed to be. We're not supposed to be. We're supposed to be glowing. Because we're reflections of the glory of God. Look, it's my family is supposed to reflect God. Say, well, what do you want for your kids? Well, I don't want them to embarrass me. I want them to be good. No. I want my family to be a reflection of the glorious God, so that when people say, what's going on with your kids? What's with your family? Oh, I'm glad you asked. We got this God that we love and we serve, and He's amazing. And in His Word, He's told us how to do family. And we believe He loves us so much that His instructions on how to do family are for our good. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing good kids not because they're good, but because He's good. And if we follow His good plan, good things happen. What do you want in your marriage? Well, I hope it's good. I don't want to have a bad marriage. I mean, I hope my spouse doesn't cheat on me. Man, folks, unsaved people want that. I have never met a person in their right mind. Hey, so what's your goal for your marriage? Oh, I want it to be trashed in the next 5 years. I want my spouse to have multiple affairs, and I want this thing to be done. No. Everybody wants a good marriage. Everybody wants a spouse who's faithful. We are people of the King. We need to have marriages that reflect the glory of God. When people go, I don't know how you do it, man. You guys have been married for like 15 years. We watch you. You act like you're still in love. What's going on? I'm glad you asked. It's God. Huh? What? Yeah. Look, His Word, believe it or not, is an instruction manual for doing marriage. And my spouse and I are trying to follow God's plan because He's the manufacturer. He knows how marriage works because He made it. And we're doing it, and it's good. You see how it works? How's it work for the church? Hey, well, there's a bunch of good people they're just good people. They're just nice people. They just do things in the community. They're just nice. We like having their church. No. It's got to be, I don't know if I believe it, but I think those people really believe that there's a God. And everything they do, every time we ask them, hey, why do you guys do this thing? Why do you do this? Why do you... Because our God is great, and we want you to know how great He is because He made you just like He made us, and He's got a great plan, and it's for your good, and we want to just give Him all this glory because He's amazing. I mean, stop and think about it. Let's go back to our 3 people that walk into the building. If we knew they were coming, would we be different in here because of it? Oh my gosh, Tom Brady's coming. Oh, wait, get the broom. Look at this stuff on the floor. Oh my gosh. Somebody get a brush. Let's brush off the seats. Do we have enough coffee? Do we have enough pastry? I mean, we got to have a special seat. Do we have like a lounge chair or something we could put him in? Why would we do that? Because He's accomplished. He's famous. We would give Him glory. Why don't we do that for our God? And then lastly, and this to me is amazing, we need to long for the day we share God's glory. You go, what? This is amazing stuff, folks. Romans 5, 1 and 2. Check this out on your own later, but listen to it right now. Paul says, therefore, based on everything I've already told you, since we've been made right with God in God's sight by faith, we have peace with God. Man, that's great stuff right there. Because of what Jesus did, He paid the penalty for our sin. And when we put our faith and trust in what Jesus did on the cross for us, there's now no separation between us and God. We have peace with God. That's what Paul's saying here. He says, because of what Jesus Christ our Lord has done for us. Listen to this. Because of our faith, Christ has brought us into this place of undeserved privilege where we now stand and we confidently and joyfully look forward to sharing God's glory. What? I mean, I want you to stop and put 2 and 2 together here. Exodus 33. Moses says, God, I just got to see your glory. I want to see more of your glory. God's, Mo, it ain't going to happen, man. If you see my glory, you're going to die. And then Paul tells us in Romans, you need to look forward to the time, not just that you're going to see God's glory, but you're going to share in God's glory. Say, whoa, what is going on? 1 John 3:2. Dear friends, we are already God's children, but He has not yet shown us what we will be like when Christ appears. But we do know that we will be like Him, for we will see Him as He really is. Here's the deal. The reason we can't see God right now is because of the state that we're in. But one day our state will be changed. And we will not only be in the presence of God, we will share in that presence. You go, what does that mean, Rand? I'm not totally sure, but I was thinking about this. You know, for those of you that are visiting, you're not going to understand this, but for those of us that have lived here, and I grew up in South Florida, so my status hasn't changed a whole lot with regard to weather. But the reality is it's been cold lately for some of us. Do I hear an amen on that? Amen. And I have this, in my office, I have this little portable air conditioning unit that has a little hose that goes out through the window. You guys have seen those. And on that air conditioning unit is a thermometer that tells you how cold it is in the room. Well, it's been a couple of days during this colder weather. It's been like 65 in the warmest part of the day in my office. You go, that sounds great. Well, it is if your blood isn't water like mine is. I mean, I'm freezing in there. And we've had a couple of days better than today. We've had a couple of days where, I mean, the sky is just this deep, rich blue. You guys notice that? Just how brilliant blue the sky's been? And the sun's been shining, and it's just been just gorgeous if you're out in the sun. And so every once in a while, I'll be doing some work in my office, and I'm just like, dang, I am so cold. I just want to go outside for a while. So I'll go outside, and I'll use an excuse. I'll go check on Danny, see what he's doing, so that I can stand out in the sun for a little while. And as long as I'm standing in the sun, man, it feels so good. We live in a very cold world, folks. It's cold. And every once in a while, we get these glimpses of God's glory. Man, I don't know about you, but it's like, oh, that feels so good. I just need that warmth, God. One day, we're not in the cold anymore. We're just absorbing the sun. That's what I think he's saying. I haven't done this near the justice that needs. It's such a crucial topic. But as I was studying this, a song just kept coming to my mind, and I just would like us to to worship this morning with the idea of this song. So guys, if you would play that for